18 to please ask the first.
Well, the worry is not so much with inflation and GDP, with the numbers in transition. The worry is with the way in which near-term call rate and repo rate have fallen. Call rate and TREPS rate have fallen way below the repo rate. I mean, they're almost a percentage point between 4/4 and 4.75 actually. So what's the thinking behind allowing that kind of a fall? On the 1st of February, the question we would have wanted to ask you is, how will you manage this large borrowing program? The market was rightly worried and yields shot up. So that question as well. The immediate short-term fall in call rate and TREPS rate, is it intentional? What is your view of how it may evolve? And separately, this medium term, how are you going to help it? Will it be OMO in liquids? What's the expectation?
So let me say, as mentioned in the monetary policy statement, liquidity is something that is our duty to provide. Ample liquidity, sufficient liquidity as is required to meet the productive needs of the economy. That is the first task. And the second task, to be able to ensure that monetary policy transmission happens, not only in the overnight markets, in the money markets, in the government security markets, the corporate, the credit markets, all the markets. So whatever we do with regard to liquidity is keeping this overarching goal in mind. Now, the tools that we have for liquidity, you are aware, we have a number of tools for them, especially, OMOs, long-term, short-term, VRRs, VRRs, so as to be able to ensure that we give liquidity and we keep the overnight liquidity at the policy repo rate. That is the immediate target, to keep it over there, and then hope that this will transmit into all other markets. The transmission, you are aware, has been quite good, especially, till December in all markets. After December, there was slight hardening, as I have mentioned. There was some hardening in the money markets, but overall, transmission has been excellent. We will continue, as I mentioned in my statement, that we will continue to provide liquidity proactively and preemptively. This is not something, that the exact details is not something that we always or by rule mention in the policy statement or only, in the policy statement. Liquidity is a continuous operations that is done. So you have seen that we have provided liquidity even outside the policy statement, as we did, in later when we felt that there was a requirement for liquidity in the second half of January. We followed it up with whatever we had announced in the monetary policy statement. We followed it up with liquidity. So all I can say is that we will continue to provide sufficient liquidity with an aim that the monetary policy transmission happens in all markets.
So, sorry to intrude, but there is no mention of the word switches or buybacks by you or by the government. So the market is worried in the medium term. Right now it is a little stupid to ask about the liquidity is so plentiful now. But in the medium term, do these things still,
are you referring to the government? See, the government program, I think, again, we have been looking at the gross numbers, which I don't think really, is the correct way to look at it, frankly. The way to look at it, we have been looking at, 17 plus lakh crore or something. But there are, much more redemptions this year, coming year, next year, than, there were last year. So as a result of that, the gross calendar will obviously, be higher. But if you look at the net numbers, 11.53 lakh crore is the number for this year. government securities borrowing program. Next year it is projected, it is budgeted to be 11.73 lakh crore. It's only 20,000 crore more, which is, I mean, one would have expected at least, if the budget size is going up by almost 9% or so, 8 to 9%, GDP is expected to grow at 10%, one would expect a 10% growth. The growth is much less. We should really be looking, at net. Number two, also, you find that this year or in the year to come, there will be money will be raised also through the treasury bills, which will help, in further. I think it will help, in managing the yield curve better, and we also find that the budgeted numbers for small savings are also, quite conservative. So I think, the kind of numbers, the borrowing program that the government is looking is much on the lower side, and they should be able to raise these kind of resources at very reasonable prices. I'll request Mr. Ravi Shankar, to further add onto the switches, some 2.5 lakh crore of switches have also been planned. That will also, further help on the liquidity and the management of the yield curves.
That's right. And buybacks are not factored in at this point in time. They are factored in during the course of the year. To the extent there will be buybacks, the gross borrowing number to that extent come down. I just wanted to, Governor explained all the factors clearly. I just wanted to draw the attention to the sense that the, gross borrowing is large. We should put them in context. Look at 2007-8. We were borrowing 1.9 lakh crores per year. 2 years later, 2.910, we were borrowing 5.8. 3 times the gross borrowing. Was that managed? That was managed. You look at relatively. Look at 2020, 2021. We were borrowing about 7 lakhs. In 2 years' time, we were borrowing 15 lakhs. Right? So these numbers, go up. If you compare to that, the increase is nothing significant at all. I'm certain Reserve Bank will be able to manage the government borrowing program quite efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, sirs. We will take some more questions from our left side before we come to the right. Next, I'll ask Manojit Saha from Business Standard to ask his question. Manojit, please.
The trade rates have collapsed, which has created some pain for the non-banks. But at the same time, SDF, bank parking in SDF has gone up very significantly, over 3 lakhs. Is there a plan to tackle lazy banking? Is there a discussion on whether you can cap how much banks can borrow from SDF, or widening the corridor, bringing SDF down so that banks are forced to lend to productive resources? And consequently, do you think the CD ratio of more than 80%, 81% is a new normal now, given the constraints of deposits that we have seen?
See, we did review the liquidity management framework. Your question is actually linked to, the liquidity management framework that was done recently, and not many changes were announced. Let's keep in mind that this is a complex subject, because these 3 markets, your TREPs, call money markets, and the repo market, there is very high linkage. We mentioned that when we decided not to change it. In the medium to long term, there is a very high correlation, and so that's why we continue to target the call money rate, which is called the Walker. Over short periods of time, on day-to-day basis, there can be fluctuations. There can be non-alignments. But on the whole, I think as of now, we are not looking at making any changes immediately. However, as you have also, pointed out, there can certainly, be different. There can be different ways of looking at it, which we are at the moment, as I mentioned, we are not looking at whether to change the corridor and how to better manage it. As I mentioned, this is complex. We are right now not looking at making any further changes. With regard to your second question on CD rate, see, this is cyclical. At a period when your credit is more than deposits, it's quite expected that the CD rates will go up. And when at times when credit is not growing so much, then the CD ratios will come down. And we have seen this happen over and over again. There is a time when the CD ratios go up, and then there's a time when the CD ratios come down, depending on where we are in the business cycle of the banks. But I may mention that for us, it's not the CD ratio which is important. What is important is liquidity. There is an LCR framework for it. There is an NSFR, net stability funding ratio, which is there for medium-term liquidity. There is an LCR for the immediate or the 1 month liquidity that we are looking at. Both of them for the banks as well as for the non-bank financial companies are at very comfortable levels. So there is no issue over there.
If I could just add one clarification. There was no mention of INR or BOP deficit in the policy. Is it because you are pretty much comfortable with the trade deals and the inflows and all? Is that the reason?
See, our macroeconomic fundamentals of the country, including the external sector, are very strong, very robust, very healthy. Whether you look at growth, inflation, whether you look at the current account on the external side, or you look at even the capital account side, I think near-term, medium-term outlook is very healthy, is very favorable. You are aware that the government has taken a series of measures to increase our external position. Number of bilateral as well as multilateral deals have been signed. EU, EFTA earlier, Oman earlier, UK, and now the prospective UK deal. All of these will help on the top of a very, very comfortable current account that was last year 0.6% of our GDP. First half only 0.8% of the GDP. On top of this, with all these deals, agreements, it should only further help. Not only on the current account, on the trade side, merchandise and services, but also on the investment side, because a lot of them have investment commitments. Like, for example, EFTA, I think, had $100 billion. New Zealand had $20 billion. On top of that, even on the investment side, the government has been very proactive. It has taken a number of measures. See, these are things, first of all, let's keep in mind, these are in the domain of the government. These are not, in our domain. These are in the domain of the government. The regulators are there primarily to facilitate whatever economic activity is going to happen, whether it is domestically or whether it is in the external sector. But I want to remind everyone that the government has been very proactive, both on current account as well as capital account. Latest example, on capital account being opening up of the insurance sector to 100% FDI. That will help. This year, we have witnessed record deals in the banking space and the NBFC space, about $15 billion, of announcements or FDI, already that has come in. And then a number of other measures that now the government is taking. I was very happy to see in the budget the tax holiday, for example, for data centers. That should bring in a lot of investments in our country. Safe harbor rules were in the works for some time. The safe harbor rules now for IT, I would like to draw attention to all of you and to your viewers. I think this has not perhaps gained, the attention that it deserves. It's a very big move towards tax certainty, simplicity, ease of doing business within our country. All these GCCs, that you see are being set up, they will vastly gain from, and these are only some of the measures, that I have mentioned to you. In the near term, in the medium term, we are, as mentioned even in the monetary policy statement, we are very confident of meeting our external sector responsibilities, whether it is on the current account. You are aware, 11 months, we mentioned 11 months of imports. That is imports. If you look at deficit, it is, my DG tells me, one should be looking at the deficits. Deficit is, if it is $10-20 billion, let us say, so, we have sufficient reserves for many decades, not, 11 months of import, but many decades of deficit. Similarly, our short-term borrowings, debt, twice the reserves of our short-term borrowings, twice. So on the external side, we are very comfortable, and I did make a mention of that in my monetary policy statement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I will request Ankur Mishra of ET Now to ask his question. Ankur, please.
Thank you, Bridget, and good afternoon, Governor. I want your attention towards the inflation growth dynamics. On one hand, when you're talking about growth, you have revised your guidance upwards, and you mentioned about the deals as well, which augurs well. But on the inflation front, you are inching over 4% in the next 2 quarters, but you have also given a caveat that precious metals is accounted for that. So in that scenario, last time when you mentioned the same thing, you used the word Goldilocks, the sweet spot scenario. Are we still in the sweet spot, or you think the situation is slightly different?
We are certainly, in the same sweet spot, maybe even better. Because growth is looking up, growth is looking even better, and inflation is the same. Headline, one is looking at headline, 0.1, 0.2%, 20 basis points here and there is a very small number, point number one. Point number two, it is headline. As mentioned in my statement, it is primarily to do with base effects. It is primarily to do with the volatility in the food prices, core inflation, underlying inflation, barring precious metals, is very benign, continues to be benign. So we are in the same position, more or less same position insofar as inflation is concerned. Growth seems to be better than earlier. So we are in a better position than we were, when we met last. Over that, a number of developments have happened. You are all aware, as to the reasons as to why, we are in a better position now today than we were earlier.
Thank you, sir. I will now request Anup Roy of Bloomberg to ask his question. Anup, please.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Reserve Bank of India is selling US Treasury for some time now. In 2 years, the Treasury holding...
Who told you this?
So the data shows that it is down 26%.
I don't know where you have got this data from.
US Treasury data.
No, certainly not. There is no such...
So the Treasury holding data there shows that it is now $174 billion, which is...
See, overall, you are aware that our forex reserves had come down. So, as a result of that, overall, when they come down, then all holdings would come down, so they will change. So those are fluctuations on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis that we give out. But there is no reduction in our holdings of the US treasuries.
So can I ask another question on the rupee? That so when the rupee was depreciating,
Let's keep in mind that there are, so many other people we are taking their time. So if your question is not asked by others, then we will come back to you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you, sir. Next, I will request Hamsini Karthik from Money Control to ask a question. Hamsini, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Governor and everyone. My question is with respect to transmission of repo rates. It seems to be that bank lending transmission has happened much more effectively versus on deposits. I agree on deposits we've had transmission, but much of the transmission is at the lower end of deposits. The middle segment, which actually matters to the retail depositors, is continuing to remain high. And as an allied, we also saw CD of India's largest bank being raised at 6%. It does put a lot of cost pressure at a time when repo is being on a pause at this point in time or has reduced over the last 1 year. What are your thoughts around this? And I have a second question, slightly unrelated, but what caught my attention in your speech is your reference to precious metals this time around. We've also seen that gold loans as a segment has gone up by 86%. Much of it is coming due to the price volatility and not really the tonnage adding up to the growth in the segment. At RBI, are you a little concerned, or would you want to look at, how this does not have societal ramifications? Should there be higher auctions as gold prices correct?
So let me correct you that precious metals did find a mention, if I remember correctly, even in the last policy, not only this policy statement. But on the gold loans, we are very comfortable. There is no, we have been reviewing all the portfolios, whether it is gold loans, whether it is MSMEs, whether it is personal loans, all categories, they show good asset quality, low slippages, and no cause for any concern. The LTV ratios for the gold loans are quite low, although we have a higher limit going up to even 85%, 70 to 85% depending on the amount of loan, but the LTV ratios being maintained by the banks as well as the NBFCs are on the lower side. As to policy transmission, your first question on deposit size, it is expected that, and that has been the case always, that on the deposits, the policy transmission happens slower because on the advances side, credit side, we have rates which are linked directly to external benchmarks like the repo and T-bills. So over there it is faster, and in the deposit rates it is slower. So that is to be expected. It has improved. It is improving. From every policy statement, we look at it even more closely. We give out the numbers to you, policy to policy statement wise, but they have been improving, and we are hopeful that they will further continue to improve.
Cost pressures will ease over time. Is that your estimation, sir? In that case,
over a period of time, certainly they will decrease. Will decrease.
Thank you, sir. We will now take a few questions from the right side. I'll request Sangeeta Mehta from the Economic Times to ask a question.
Thank you. Governor, could you elaborate on the policy? You have spoken about empowering customers, the mis-selling policy. You spoke about a lot of things on mis-selling and the unauthorized compensation for unauthorized transaction. On those things, could you elaborate? And on this compensation, I also wanted to know whether if a person gives OTP, will he still be compensated?
I'm so happy you ask these questions. People have been, busy asking questions on markets. But obviously, there are many people in this room who ask questions directly related to customers. And every policy, and even outside, it has been our conscious effort that we continue to improve customer centricity, the customer experience, the customer delight that all of you, including us as customers, expect from banks, NBFCs and the regulated entities. So mis-selling, yes, this has been a concern. We have been mentioning it. There have been directions with regard to mis-selling. And this time, we have codified them. We'll be issuing the draft guidelines with regard to mis-selling. Similarly, there is a framework which we will now be taking out for compensation for small frauds, because we have observed that while in value they constitute a very small proportion, but in terms of numbers, I think 65% of them have less than 50,000 or so in terms of amount. So as long as they are defrauded, whether on their own accord or anyone's accord, no questions asked, 25,000 rupees or 85%. You will have the details very shortly, which will be there. It's a draft, and we will compensate them as long as it is unintended and they have lost that money. Would you like to, Shirish, would you like to bring in more details?
Like Governor said, this guideline will come out soon. Basically, both in terms of your question about mis-selling, emphasis is on product suitability, customer appropriateness, and also consent. These are the pillars on which we will be giving the detailed guidelines. And as far as compensation, which is first time we are proposing the guideline, 25,000 is the limit. Of course, there will be some rules, and it will be one time. Detail will be out very soon.
So, will the customer be compensated if OTP is given? That is very something. Okay. Thank you.
If he loses the money, no questions asked. As long as he has lost the money, making checks that it's not kind of malafide. It's not kind of malafide. So there are checks in the system to ensure that. That's why we have kept the amount very small. There is skin in the game for the customer, 15%. There is skin in the game for the banks, 15%. And the remaining amount we propose that we will provide from the Reserve Bank. And the amount is very small. We will see, how it goes. But for the small customers, for whom this actually means a lot, this is a way of providing some immediate relief, some immediate solace.
Yeah, thank you, sirs. I'll now request Alexander Matthew of NDTV Profit to ask his question. Alexander, please.
Good afternoon, Governor. Good afternoon, everybody else. You've covered quite a bit of ground. Let me ask you about what you said on credit growth. And you spoke about system-wide closer to 14%, and you said several pockets are seeing growth. My question to you is allied with what some of my peers have already asked. One would assume that the trajectory would increase heading into the new year as the impetus to growth increases. But is there going to be a curtailing of the extent to which it can grow by the fact that the CD ratios remain high? Have you factored that in? And there's an argument that has also been made that a large part of this spurt in credit growth we've seen in the recent past is gold loan linked. Is that something that you have witnessed? And also if you can comment on why you considered the measure that you did on REITs and MSMEs at this point, and maybe give us a little more detail on that.
So the first question I'll leave to DG, because whatever I had to say on credit growth I already mentioned. I'll ask DG Swaminathan to maybe add little bit more flavor to the credit growth. and the gold loans, of course, which have witnessed huge growth rates to the extent of about 200% or so. Your second question, let me, touch base on that, which is on MSMEs. So MSMEs are, the growth engines. They are an very important component of our economy, especially from the point of view of generating employment. And so this limit of 10 lakh rupees has been there for quite some time. I think 2010 or so, 2010 is this limit. So it's basically, indexing for inflation. That's what it is, from 10 lakh to 20 lakh rupees. The second one is on REITs. Again, we had already allowed lending to InvITs. And so now, we are in the same vein, allowing lending even for REITs. This will further help the real estate sector. Swaminathan.
So on credit growth, of course, as you mentioned, overall it is 14% year on year, but there are different components as you look at it. Agriculture has grown at about December data at 12%, industry has grown at 13%, personal loans have gone slightly upwards of 14%, so it's more secular. It is not that any one particular segment has contributed less or more. Gold loan as a proportion to the total lending book is something that we will have to see. The percentages can be misleading, and that increase is not something which is unexpected, because primarily in the previous years the unsecured personal loans had a major role in terms of contributing to the overall growth. When banks move more towards safety, when there are higher slippages seen in certain segments like MFI or personal loans which are unsecured, the collateralized loans will see a pickup. So there has been a shift, but that shift has been also aided by the spurt in the gold prices, which is all right. But system level, the LTV ratio is still below 70%. While of course we have even permitted, as Governor mentioned, slightly higher LTV, system level it is below 70%. So there is absolutely no concern in terms of, number one, you will have to look at the percentage in terms of the overall pie that it has in the bank credit. And second is that LTV levels are even comfortable at this point in time, so there is no worry. And MSME, as Governor clarified, 15 years now, so it's time that we relook at the numbers and also be supportive of this. You would recall that last year we increased for agriculture segment as well to 2 lakhs. So this is in keeping in alignment with that, so that the smaller customers are not deprived of access to formal credit for lack of collateral. Thank you.
Thank you, sirs. I'll now request Piyush Shukla of Hindu Business Line to ask his question. Piyush, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Governor, DGs. Thanks, Pete, sir. So, a couple of queries. First is, possibility of uptick in commodity prices, rupee pressure. Of course, you said Goldilocks has even improved, but on inflation side, if there is an upside, do you see there is, or with the current pause, it means we are at terminal at 5.25. Second is, sir, in the government union budget that Finance Minister presented, the subsidy for UPI has been slightly lowered. I just want to understand, sir, some people in the payments industry, including the SRO that you have recognized for the payments body, they have suggested that we should, not on the customer side, you mentioned we are very pro customers, but on the higher value P2M transaction person to merchants of a certain category with higher turnover rates, chroma and all, 0.03% MDR, because anyways on certain credit lines there is already a MDR. Do you feel that that could be, and you had earlier mentioned somebody has to bear the cost in your earlier remark. And I know I won't get an answer for this, but sir, any update on Tata Sons?
So see, UPI.
I mean, I was only stating the obvious, that someone has to pay for the cost, right? Having said that, see, it is in the domain of the government now. And I'm very sure that we will certainly be able to find out a way of not only sustaining but improving this very important payment infrastructure, which is so very unique in our country in the years to come, and even further improve it. So there should not be any concern, especially from the customer's point of view. Similarly, all the stakeholders, there should not be any concern. I think we'll be able to find a sustainable way of sustaining this and improving it going forward.
RBI terminal rate.
See, this is a question for the MPC to answer as to how we, as I mentioned, we will continue to be data dependent, and we are at a neutral phase, other than one member who voted, who not voted because we don't vote, but who wanted to change the stance from neutral to accommodative. All others are at neutral, which means that given the state of economy that is today and that we foresee going down ahead over 9-month period, 1 year period, this is the rate that we expect it to be there. I may mention, however, that as already mentioned even in my policy statement, that we are in a good spot, earlier mentioned as Goldilocks. Inflation, especially your underlying inflation, is low. It's much lower. Even our forecast going ahead is much lower. The target headline, of course, can go up and down. As mentioned, underlying inflation is very, very benign, and so I do expect that the policy rates should continue to be at low levels for a long period of time. Whether they will go down even further, I will leave it for the MPC to decide going forward.
Thank you, sir. I will request Mahesh Naik from Financial Express to ask his question.
Yeah,
Mahesh,
thank you,
please.
sir. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Just wanted to understand, sir, you spoke about liquidity and supporting liquidity in the system, but to just assess, what would be your assessment on the liquidity system liquidity? Will you be comfortable between 0.6 to 1% of NDTL? And second, just to ask is, with the trade deal around the corner, do we see a reduction in monetary policy support? Thank you. These are my two.
No, monetary policy support I already mentioned, right? That it's not as, let's not look at it as a kind of a support. See, we are in a, we look at, see the real rate of interest today is very low. Is not, is not very low. If you look at the real rate today, it's still high. So, but going forward, yes, we are in a accommodative phase. We are more or less, at neutral, if you have, because the neutral we say is, 1.4 to 1.9. So if inflation going forward is, 3.5, 4, we are more or less 3 to 4, 3 to 4 is the range that we have. Then we are more or less, neutral or below neutral rates. So that space, that it, as I mentioned, we continue to be in this space. There is not, we'll take it, policy by policy with regard to this.
Thank you, sir. I will request Shweta Roy of the Banker UK FT to ask a question. Shweta, please.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Governor, the recent RBI bulletin highlights how the risk is being materialized very quickly in the system, be it coming from algorithm or interdependence, cyber threat, and especially Mr. Swaminathan mentioned about the conduct risk, how it becomes a confidence issue, and later it becomes a liquidity problem. I would like to understand, how does RBI plan to set up a more proactive supervisory measure considering all these risk factors? Thank you.
So this is an area which we continuously work upon. We continuously try to improve our supervisory toolkit. Our effort has been more and more on being proactive, preemptive, on a real-time basis. It has been, our attempt has been to be more, as I mentioned even earlier, somewhere, to be more offline and preemptive. A number of measures we have taken in this regard. I'll request DG Swaminathan, to throw light on some of the measures that we have taken. A number of measures on IT security, etc. Even measures with regard to prudential risks. This is work which is always in progress. Request DG to supplement.
Yeah, just to supplement on this, as you rightly said, the new types of risks that have emerged require not just a point-in-time supervision. So this is an ongoing effort. So we have significantly augmented our supervisory toolkits to be more data-driven. Insights provided by the upside data that we are able to take from the system. As a regulator, as a supervisor, we have enormous amount of the real-time data that flows into us. So the risks are monitored more offline, less on-site. The traditional tools largely rely on the on-site inspection. But this is something which a calibration over the last 2-3 years we have significantly augmented our capacity. So we are in a position to issue more real-time advisories to all the regulated entities. We keep doing that routinely. We have also put out very elaborate guidelines in terms of master directions for ensuring IT risk, cyber security, vendor management, third-party risk management, outsourcing risk management guidelines. We will continue to augment these tools, and this is an evolving space. As Governor said, there is no goalpost here. We will continue to respond to the emerging situation. And one thing, it's a very redeeming feature is that almost every regulated entity realizes this. There are significant investment that is happening in terms of ramping up the operational resilience. That's our focus, and supervision accordingly will evolve.
Thank you, sirs. We will now take the remaining questions from our left side. To begin with, I will request Ekta Suri from Z Business to ask a question. एकता प्लीज।
गुड आफ्टरनून सर। सर एक क्लैरिटी बस लेना चाहते हैं। अभी आपने बताया कि जो ओटीपी से नुकसान की भरपाई भी है वो 25,000 के आसपास है, तो नुकसान भले ही किसी का 1 लाख का हुआ हो या 2 लाख का हुआ हो, 15% ग्राहक को झेलना पड़ेगा, 15% बैंक को झेलना पड़ेगा। क्या बाकी का जो मुआवजा है वो 25,000 किस तरह से सर कैलकुलेट होगा? आरबीआई देगा? और आपने एक और बात मेंशन की थी, ये वन टाइम होगा। इसका क्या मतलब सर कि अगर किसी का 1 से ज्यादा बार नुकसान हुआ है तो उसकी भरपाई फिर कैसे होगी?
तो 1 से ज्यादा बार इसलिए नहीं रखा है क्योंकि हम ये चाहते हैं कि एक बार गलती करने के बाद में जो ग्राहक है वो सतर्क हो जाए और वो अपनी गलती में सुधार करे। एक बार गलती माफ की जा सकती है और उस गलती को नुकसान की भरपाई हम कर रहे हैं। इसीलिए ये जो सीमा हमने रखी है, लिमिट रखी है, वो एक बार की रखी है और वो लाइफ टाइम की है, वो सालाना नहीं है। एक बार आप गलती, वैसे तो इंसान को दूसरों की गलतियों से सीख लेनी चाहिए, लेकिन दूसरों से नहीं तो कम से कम अपनी गलती से तो सीख ले लीजिए। इसलिए वो लिमिट रखी है। 25,000 रुपए अगर मान लीजिए 50,000 का नुकसान होता है तो उसका हम 85% कैलकुलेट करेंगे। 85% उसका होगा लगभग 42,500, 42,500 रुपया होगा। 42,500 रुपया और 25,000 रुपया, इसमें से जो भी कम है तो उसको 25,000 रुपया मिलेगा। अगर 20,000 का नुकसान होता है तो उसका 85% हुआ 17,000। 17,000 और 25,000 में से जो कम है 17,000, तो उसको 17,000 मिलेगा, 3,000 उसको देना पड़ेगा।
और सर सवाल मैं ये पूछना चाह रही थी कि पिछली या उससे पहले वाली पॉलिसी में डिस्कशन हुआ था कि अगर कोई अपने पर्सनल लोन का डिफॉल्ट करता है, उसने फोन लिया है खरीदी की फोन की, तो उसका फोन जो है लॉक हो जाएगा। क्या आरबीआई ने इस प्लान को ड्रॉप कर दिया है या अभी भी ऑन टेबल है कि अगर किसी ने अपनी किस्त नहीं चुकाई?
ये अद्याधीन है, अभी भी
अभी भी
ये अंडर एग्जामिनेशन है.
थैंक यू सर.
धन्यवाद सर. I will now request Falaknaz Sayyed of Deccan Chronicle to ask her question. Falaknaz, please.
Sir, based on your assessment, how much can the tariff reduction add to the GDP growth? Is my one question. And second, while you have cut 125 basis points and infused almost 6 lakh crore liquidity, bond yields have not, they are refusing to budge down. And today also yields are shot up by 4 to 5 basis points. So how do you plan to address that?
See, it is still early days, so we have not actually done a assessment of how much the trade deal will contribute to the GDP growth, because see, right now we don't even have the details thereof. But we have still, added to the GDP by about 20 basis points because of various reasons, including the US trade deal. We will give out the numbers in the next monetary policy statement. Regarding bond yields, I think I have already mentioned, enough. I really don't have more to add. It will be our constant endeavor to proactively, preemptively continue to provide liquidity, which we are hopeful will certainly transmit to all markets, all credit, money market, bonds, all markets.
Thank you, sir. I will now request Anurag Shah of ET Now Swadesh to ask his question. Anurag, please.
नमस्ते सर, थैंक यू सर. सर, आज की पॉलिसी में सबसे ज्यादा आपका फोकस जो कंज्यूमर सेंट्रिक ऐलानों पे ही रहा है, जिसका लोगों को फायदा होगा. तो सर, जो मिस सेलिंग की गाइडलाइंस की आपने बात की है, तो उसमें माने कि ये इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर पर ही ज्यादा फोकस है, क्योंकि एफएसआर रिपोर्ट जो फाइनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी रिपोर्ट रिजर्व बैंक के द्वारा जारी की गई थी, उसमें भी काफी चिंता जताई गई थी कि डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कॉस्ट, कमीशन कॉस्ट जो है वो प्राइवेट लाइफ इंश्योरेंस कंपनियों के द्वारा जिस तरह से दी जा रही है, उससे इंश्योरेंस के पेनिट्रेशन पे और एफोर्डेबिलिटी पे काफी असर होगा. फिर हमने देखा सर, उसी का संज्ञान लेते हुए इकोनॉमिक सर्वे में भी उसको चिंता को जताया गया था, और हमने भी कई बार सर आपके सामने भी ये मुद्दा उठाया है. क्रेडिट लिंक प्रोडक्ट जो बेचे जाते हैं बैंकों के द्वारा, उससे लोगों को मिस सेलिंग बढ़ती है. तो क्या सर इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर के लिए ये है, और सर आपने एक संज्ञान लिया इस दिक्कत का, उसके लिए भी सर ये स्वागत योग्य है.
सबसे पहले मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि मेरे ख्याल से अगर यदि आज हमारी पॉलिसी वक्तव्य से यदि कोई सबसे ज्यादा खुश होगा तो वो अनुराग, जो दूसरे साइड पे बैठे हैं उनमें अनुराग होगा शायद, क्योंकि आप लोगों ने, मैंने कम से कम ये नोट किया, हर बार आपका ये प्रश्न जरूर आता था, हर बार आपने ये पूछा.
यस सर, तो वही सर
आप क्या कर रहे हैं,
संज्ञान लिया.
तो आप जो है सबसे अधिक इस बारे में खुश होंगे. तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि ये हम अभी लेकर के आए हैं, तो ये हमारे संज्ञान में नहीं था. कई सारे कदम हमने इसमें पहले भी उठाए थे. हाँ, जो आप ये बात कह रहे हैं, ये मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि हालांकि इस प्रकार की मिस सेलिंग पूरे सिस्टम वाइड में अगर हम देखते हैं तो वो बहुत अधिक नहीं है, वो काफी कम है. लेकिन हमारे लिए एक भी व्यक्ति, प्रत्येक व्यक्ति हमारे लिए इम्पोर्टेंट, और उसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए हमने, हालांकि प्रतिशत के दृष्टि से, अनुपात की दृष्टि से अधिक नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी हमारे लिए ये एक कंसर्न है, और उसको हमने इसमें संज्ञान लेते हुए इसमें कई सारे कदम हमने इसमें मिस सेलिंग के लिए हमने इसमें डाले हैं. डार्क पैटर्न्स के बारे में डाला है, कई सारे प्रावधान इसमें हमने किए हैं, जिससे हमें उम्मीद है कि ये मिस सेलिंग और अधिक, इस पे और अधिक अंकुश लगेगा.
धन्यवाद सर. I will request Hitesh Vyas of Indian Express to ask his question. Hitesh,
hi sir, good afternoon. Sir, there is a concern regarding shortage of small denomination currency notes, sir. Is there anything RBI planning to address this issue?
See, we are very conscious of whatever are the needs for currency, we provide currency, whether it is short denomination or higher denomination. We provide all currencies. There is a review which we regularly do, and basis that the printing and the management and circulation thereof is ensured. And we will continuously and we'll continue to provide whatever are the currency needs of the country, including small currency notes. You would have noticed that currency in circulation has actually increased quite a lot in the last 1 year, especially over the last 1 month or so. And so it has increased only because, we have provided it.
Thank you, sir. I will request Ben Jose of the New Indian Express to ask his question. Ben, please.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, one is a clarification on the fraud payment. That 70% of the money would be paid by RBI. Where that money would come from? The unclaimed deposits? Okay. And how much is the unclaimed deposit? RBI has taken many measures to enable people to get the money back. How much has been given back by banks, and how much is the total pending amount? Any number?
Total number is, including interest, is something like 85,000 crore, if I remember correctly. And the total amount, we did this campaign. You are aware, we did a campaign. I think total amount is, including RBI and others, that was returned. There were other regulators also involved in this. The total amount, I think, there is about 5,000 crore or so. Banking is also, I think, 3,500 to 4,000 crore. You can give the exact number if you have it.
Yes. Month-wise, we are tracking, like in the last policy also, I had clarified this. Month-wise, it has gone up, actually, the amount of money being returned to customers. In fact, if I have to give you the December figure, it's gone up, and now December figure stands at 1,043 crore. November it was 802 crore, and October 759 crore. And like I said earlier, before this campaigning, it was averaging around 100 to 200 crore. So this is actually has picked up, and January figure is yet to come, and we believe it will be much better.
These are monthly figures.
These are monthly.
So the total will be about 4,000 to 5,000 crore.
Yeah. Total figure. Sorry.
No, sorry.
You can. No, I don't have the total figure over here. Yeah.
No, I thought you mentioned about the compensation will come out of unclaimed deposits. No, unclaimed deposits belong to the customers. So when they are claimed, they will be repaid. We have a deposit education and awareness fund, which also includes unclaimed deposits. So we have adequate income surplus that is accrued over a period of time. We may use that, but at this point in time, I just want to clarify, it's not from the unclaimed deposits. That belongs to the customers. That has to be, we have to keep it in trust.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I will now request Lalatendu Mishra of The Hindu to ask his question. Lalatendu ji.
Good afternoon, Governor. In your statement, you have said about how the technology stocks are keeping the markets upbeat. And recently there are a lot of concern about how a lot of investment going to investment going into AI. And what is your assessment, sir? Is there a disconnect between the real economy and the markets, and what is your overall assessment of so much of money going to the technology companies?
Madam, you want to take this?
So the statement is in the context of the global markets and the global economy. As you would have read over the past year or so, over and over again, there are two contradicting themes that are emerging. One is that there is potentially overheating in asset markets, including equity market, which is led by technology stocks. And on the other side, despite all odds, the real economy has held up very well. And the connection between the two is that there is a productivity growth that is expected and is already materializing from technology that is fueling the real economy through investments. So to a large extent, I won't be able to decompose it quantitatively. To a large extent, technology does have a bearing on real growth, which is materializing. At the same time, globally, whether it's reports by the IMF, BIS, or even country-specific central banks, they have been flagging the risk that there is some amount of overheating. So I think we are seeing these two narratives play out. So the correction that one is seeing is something that has been anticipated.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. I will request Ashish Agassi of PTI to ask his question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, just a small follow-up on this. How do you look at AI and its general sort of impact on the economy, given that a lot of employment, the stable and the better of the jobs are generated by the IT sector, and also remittances, because we depend on remittances a lot. So as the tech sector globally faces some bit of headwinds, how do things move? And also, Swaminathan sir, a small follow-up. How much is the depositor education fund right now? How big a corpus is it? And if we were to run back 25,000 ceiling compensation, how much of payments were to happen, say in FY 25 or 24? What is the capabilities there, basically, sir? Thank you.
So recently, internally, we did a survey of the existing literature on the impact of AI on productivity and employment. So the range is quite wide. The range is not negative, actually, as of now. Certainly on the productivity side, good numbers to high numbers. On employment, while the evidence is, or even hypothetically, is difficult to talk about, but whatever surveys have been done, whether internationally or domestically in India, as of today, is showing a net positive effect. So with any technology, there is churning that happens. But net employment effect so far has been positive. The churning is that some people lose jobs and others gain. And so then the challenge lies in transitioning the skills and labor markets towards the faster growing segments. And the sense is that this is how it will play out.
On the DA fund, to clarify, as Governor mentioned, it's about 85,000 crore plus of unclaimed deposits, plus the income accrued on it over the period. So the whole thing is kept as DA fund. And on the second part of your question, in terms of what is the estimation, we are at this point in time trying to put a framework, not made any accurate estimates. We would actually want the frauds to come down. We don't want to make an estimate of what we should do. But essentially, more than 2/3 in number is small value frauds, but in value they constitute less than 15%. So it is that particular segment who have unwittingly become victims of such frauds is what we are trying to cover. So financial impact may not be very high, but a large number of customers may be provided some solace. That is the intention with which we are trying to bring this.
Okay. Thank you, sir, and thank you, madam. Last question from our left side from Shri Jeevan Bhava sir of आकाशवाणी. जीवन प्लीज।
सर अभी रिसेंटली जो ट्रेड डील्स हुई है तो उसका हमारे रूपी की रिकवरी पर कितना इम्पैक्ट हम एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं? ट्रेड डील्स
डील तो देखिए अभी तो हुई नहीं है, अभी तो अनाउंस हुआ है और अनाउंसमेंट के बाद में रुपया आपने देखा है कितना स्ट्रेंथन किया है, करीबन ₹1.5 के करीब $1 के प्रति उतना स्ट्रेंथन हुआ है। अब ट्रेड डील और होगी तो उसके बाद में उसका क्या प्रभाव होता है ये निर्भर करेगा कि ट्रेड डील में क्या उसकी डिटेल्स हैं, उसके ऊपर निर्भर करेगा।